creator and sustainer of all things and all people. You are the source of all wisdom and light. Enlighten our minds to receive your guidance, so that we may lead us into true wisdom. May all we say and do in the service of this county, whether as elected member or as an officer, be in accordance with your will and for the good of your people. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Right, could I just run through some little housekeeping notes before we start our meeting? The evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, would everyone leave by the 2 exits at the rear of the chamber? Officers will be on hand to assist people with disabilities. Mobile phones. May I ask all members who have mobile phones with them to ensure they're switched off so they will not disturb this meeting. We move now, members, to agenda item number 1, to elect a chairman. Could I now invite nominations? Yeah.
Chairman, can I move Dr. Kevin Felton be elected chairman for the period until the next annual meeting of the council?
Thank you. Mr. Mullaney?
I second that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Rushton to make his speech.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Mr. Rushton, would you like to make your speech?
Sure,
now,
thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, I'm delighted to have this opportunity to speak on behalf of the Conservative Group in support of our nomination of Kevin Felton as Chairman of the County Council for the ensuing year. You all know him well, but just a brief history. Kevin is a retired clinical scientist and grew up on a family farm in Lincolnshire, but was educated in Leicestershire and Rutland. Kevin obtained a degree in microbiology at the University of Surrey before coming back to Leicestershire to study for his PhD in microbial systematics at the University of Leicester. He has worked in a hospital laboratory computing all over the UK for much of his working life. Kevin was first elected to the County Council in 2001, at the time to represent the East Gartree Division, which later became the Gartree Division in 2005. Kevin, therefore, is now in his 6th term, something which I think Kevin should be proud of. Kevin has been a member of the Cabinet and a Cabinet support member and served on numerous council committees, including Scrutiny Commission, Corporate Governance, Health Overview, Employment, Development Control, Regulatory Board, Local Pension Board and ESPO. So he's plenty of experience, in my opinion, how this council operates. Kevin's also been chairman of Kidworth Harcourt Parish Council since 2014, as well as a member of the Kidworth Beauchamp Parish Council. Kevin is also an active member of his local community, including the local Anglican Church. I wish you every success for the forthcoming year, Kevin. You've certainly got the experience and good luck. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you.
Mr. Mullaney.
Yeah, Mr. Mullaney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group, I'm very happy to support Kevin Felton's nomination as Chairman of the County Council. As the leader has said, Kevin is an experienced county councillor, and this experience will stand him in good stead for the many civic duties he will soon be embarking on. Kevin is obviously well known within his electoral division, as he is now serving, as Mr. Wesham said, his 6th term as county councillor. And as with many of us in this chamber, Kevin is passionate about local government and works tirelessly for the residents of his patch and the wider community. As chairman of the county council, he will now have the opportunity to represent the county council across the county, where I'm sure he will prove to be a popular and respected first citizen of Leicestershire. I'm sure that Kevin has much to offer for the county council civic office, and on behalf of my group, I wish him every success in the role. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Could I now call Mrs. Hack, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm talking on behalf of the Labour group here, and we would like to congratulate Kevin and hopefully has a really successful term of office. I've had a real pleasure of working with Kevin in the various bodies, and Kevin has always been incredibly supportive and thorough in his approach to work. He's served this council on 6 terms. I think, his commitment to public service is there and plain for everybody to see. Kevin, I'm sure, will be an amazing advocate as a first citizen of Leicestershire. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much indeed. I will now announce Dr. Kevin Felton as our new chairman, and I'd like you and invite you to join us and the Chief Executive to make the declaration of acceptance of office. Thank you.
I, Kevin Feltham, of 7 Rose Yard, Kidworth Harcourt, in the county of Leicestershire, having been elected to the office of Chairman of Leicestershire County Council, do hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereof according to the best of my judgment and ability. Dated on the 18th day of May 2022. Right. This looks like fun. Get to the right page. Okay. Tish, come back. Okay. Well, certainly, I thank everybody very, very much for the kind words from the 3 group leaders, and thank you very much for electing me. And obviously, greatly thank Dan for his period of service as chairman. It's obviously been a strange year, both me as vice chairman before and for Dan, because obviously we've had the pandemic and all that stuff to finish through at least, but it has obviously affected much of the civic work that we could have been doing. So I call on Mr. Rushton then to say a bit about...
thank you very much, Chairman. The last year, as you say, Chairman, has been very difficult with the continued pandemic, which certainly impacted on Dan's year as Chairman. However, we as a group, and I think a council, are very grateful for him for carrying out the role of Chairman, because obviously when he was elected, he didn't expect to have to step up straight to be Chairman. Dan has a real sense of service to the civic life of our county and this county council, and I think he's demonstrated this through his unstinting enthusiasm and dedication to the role. Dan has been supported by his daughter, Daniela, and has represented the council at over 170 events across the county, as well as welcoming several royal visitors to Leicestershire, including Her Royal Highnesses, the Earl and Countess of Wessex, the Duke of Gloucester, and more recently, Her Royal Highness, the Princess Royal. During his year in office, Dan chose a way to raise awareness of and money for Dementia UK, a charity which is very personal to Dan, and his charity dinner in March raised £4,038.50, which was a tremendous result for what we all know is a very, very deserving charity. Despite the pandemic restrictions of the last year, the official diary has allowed Dan to remain active and visible among the community. I know I speak for you all when I say that members and officers of the County Council have valued the work that Dan has carried out on behalf of the County Council. I'm sure that everyone will agree that Dan has represented the County Council with dignity and sincerity throughout a very successful year. I'm sure I speak for all members when I say thank you and your daughter most sincerely for the way you've undertaken your civic duties on our behalf. Your services to the County Council and the Leicestershire community is much appreciated, and you can both look back with great pride and satisfaction on your term of office. Thank you, Chairman.
Mullaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd also wish to take this opportunity to add my own personal thanks and those of my group to Dan for his year as chairman. Whilst it's been a very difficult year, the role of chairman does represent ceremonial tradition, and that is why so many organisations wish to invite the chairman to their event. And regardless of the size of the organisation or of the event, having the chairman in attendance provides a real sense of occasion and civic pride. People know they're at a special occasion if the chairman is present and wearing the insignia. And we've heard how Dan has been able to fulfil his duties with great efficiency, which is essential if the chairman is to make people feel valued and at ease when coming into contact with the person who is representing this civic authority. Dan's year has been marked out by both formal and informal occasions, such as hosting a short remembrance service at County Hall in front of the Stand Easy Memorial, hosting a reception at Bow Manor Hall for volunteers, and Dan also had the unique privilege of planting, along with the Lord Lieutenant, Mr. Mike Kapoor, 2 trees at County Hall to mark Her Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. So I'd like to conclude by expressing the thanks and appreciation of my group for everything that Dan and Danielle have done for the County Council over the last year. Thank you.
Mrs. Hack? Oh, Mr. Hunt.
Just standing in for the leader. Yes, I also wish to take this opportunity on behalf of the Labour Group to add our heartfelt thanks to Dan for this year as chairman. Colleagues have paid tribute to Dan's hard work in representing the council on civic occasions, at local community events and throughout the pandemic. I would like to add my appreciation for this work, which has helped to ensure the County Council is active and supportive at the grassroots, as well as the high-profile major occasions which have been referred to. So on behalf of the Labour Group, Dan, offer our congratulations on your year in office and wish to put our appreciation on record. Thank you.
Dan, you want to say something? Yeah?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to say a few words, Mr. Chairman, comments, by thanking the people who have supported me through that 12 months. We've got a superb team here at County Hall who look after the chairman and the appointments and help with scripts and all sorts of things. They are fantastic, and I would really like them to accept that. Congratulations, it's genuine and heartfelt. I'd like to thank my consort, my daughter Daniela, thank you darling, for her support and help. I'd also like to thank Dr. Feldman, my vice chairman, for his support as well, because, you know, these great things that we do, it's all lots of people working together as we do as a team and an organisation. It's no different when you're doing this sort of work. I'd also, at this time, like to thank Pam Posnet. She was the predecessor to me, and my goodness me, did she have some work to do. It was enormous. You know, we're in the thick of COVID, we didn't know where we were all trying to learn Teams, and everybody needed to mute and was unmuted, and it was just went on. It was a whole different world. We were shouting through laptops, and it was just enormous. But anyway, I think your role was fantastic as my predecessor, and you've laid the ground well. Thank you very much for that. I would also like to express my appreciation and thanks to Jo, my chauffeur. She's been an outstanding companion, and that's what it is. I've sat in the back of that car and we've spent hundreds of hours through this last 12 months as we've gone here, there and everywhere. She always knows where she's going. She always knows where to park the car. She knows which door to open to take you in, and never fails to make the wonderful announcement, this is the chairman of the County Council. So, Joe, thank you for that. It's been a pleasure. Mr. Chairman, I've been so pleased to have been the 48th chairman of the modern era of this 133-year-old council. When visiting Belvoir Castle, I met with His Grace the Duke of Rutland. When I introduced myself to him, he said he thought his father had something to do with them. That meant us, I presume. I was then able to show him the back of the chain, he was astounded. He read that his father had presented the chain of office for the chairman in 1973, and then remained chairman until 1977. I guess if you bought the chain, that's fair. I've carried out approximately 170 visits. We lost quite a few appointments with the Omicron. So that was the latest one that suddenly appeared many months ago now, around the Christmas time period. That was forecast to be between 6,000 and 3,000 deaths a day. Well, thank God it was like a lot of other predictions. It didn't happen, but it brought the fear and concern, and everybody was worried about it. So that really pushed things really back. You may remember I started my term at Loughborough University as chairman. And that I remember the difficulty that you as members had trying to balance your laptops on your knees. And I think to myself, they did call it laptops, didn't they? But anyway, the next venue was Leicester Racecourse. On that occasion, members had tables, they could put the laptops on them. And then finally, back to our own council chamber. However, there was difficulty, and I felt that, you know, I shouldn't be just sat here or sat at home. I should really be out. I've got a lovely car and a willing driver, so I thought I've got to try and think of a new initiative. So I came up then with approaching the essential services, and I would congratulate them on behalf of the County Council and the people of Leicestershire for their outstanding work through COVID. So my first port of call was with the police, Simon Cole, Chief Constable. The mission was to thank the police for their brave work throughout COVID, and photographs and a message from me thanking the entire workforce. So I was delighted because I came out of that meeting and thought, wow, I've got a blueprint. Now I'm on fire, I can get going. So that followed with a combined fire authority, East Midlands ambulances, Leicester Hospital Group, and many, many more charities. And then bit by bit, it became more acceptable that people would invite people, and the event started, so that really turned the corner for us. It's already been mentioned, but I was fortunate on behalf of the people of Leicestershire to welcome Prince Edward and his wife, the Countess of Wessex, who I found to be absolutely amazing people. I was in a short line at Market Harborough, and there was just three of us there, and someone wandering around. They said, what should we do? I said, well, we stand in a straight line. We don't speak until we're approached, and you never push your hand out. Don't walk forward. Well, it's unbelievable. In came the Countess, and shaking hands up forward and wanting to create conversations. Truly amazing, truly amazing. And so that was really, really good. But then the Duke of Gloucester visited the 1620 Manor House just outside Colville. And that was a memorable occasion because we were able to entertain him. I was able to entertain just 6 of us there. And Christine Radford, as the portfolio holder, was part of that group. And it was just a really nice experience to sit and chat very naturally. It was wonderful. Then, quite recently, I was able to greet the Princess Anne on a visit to the county. And it wasn't an over-brilliant day. But I thought, well, okay, I'll shake it up. She'll only grumble at me and I'll take my chances. So I said, I welcome you to sunny Leicestershire, Mum. And, well, it has been sunny. You have to keep your spirits up. And I said, indeed. And we had an exchange. It was really wonderful. I'd like to finish my remarks. And there was 3 events that really stood out for me. The first one was with young children in care. They'd set an art exhibition up in the city centre, in the shopping centre, in an unused shop. So, you know, I walked in and there's these little children at different levels, and the work they'd put into actually completing these photographs, and I thought it was just absolutely amazing to see whether they're foster parents or carers, all these people, the work that went into these young children and how they were looked after and the affection. It really was a humbling experience to see the work that was done. Obviously, the director, Jane Moore, and portfolio holder, Deborah Taylor, was there. And I could just say I had a really lovely glow from leaving that event. The second awards evening was hosted here by the Lord Lieutenant in this actual chamber. That was from people from various backgrounds, but I have to say, literally, some of them were absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. And the winner in particular was a pianist and all sorts, just really credible people. And then the third event was one that I was quite more involved with, was at the Space Centre. There must have been well over 100 children in care receiving awards to say how they've achieved turning a corner, building their lives a little bit step by step. And that was really, really something to experience. And the look on their faces as you shake hands and you offer them a certificate, and obviously the portfolio holder then had a photograph next to the spaceman, and the whole thing was just fantastic. But what I'm trying to say is, and I began to realise, because having been a member here for a few years, you don't really see what's happening. It's like that graceful swan. You know, it may look graceful, underneath it's really working. So it made me feel proud, and the reason for this comment is that I want you all to share in it, because we're all part of this county council. We should be really proud of what we do with children. Is amazing. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I wish you the very, very best of luck in your year. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
I'll do this. Yeah. Thank you very much, Dan. When I accepted the office, I gave a short thanks to people, but I have a slightly longer script. Not as I have to say, I deliberately kept it to after Dan because I felt his was far more important, telling you what he's been doing and thanking various members and explain of his experiences and while they're all swapping their chairs. I certainly, it's a tremendous honour to have this opportunity to act as the first citizen of the county of Leicestershire, and it's one I intend to embrace absolutely with everything I have. And continue the good work of all my predecessors. And nice to see so many of predecessor chairmen here as well, including the record numbers. Mr. Jones, I remember you getting over 400 events. Don't think I'll ever get anywhere near that, but brilliant. Like to offer thanks to Dan, obviously his service as chairman of the County Council over the last year, and it gives me great pleasure to take this opportunity to acknowledge the service he's given. You've heard much of it just now, some of it, and our wider Leicestershire community during his term in office, particularly clearly during the challenging times we had in relation to the pandemic, indeed the Omicron, really, as you said, the last year. As I look forward to my own term of office as chairman, I'll do whatever I can to enhance the civic life of the county, and I'll endeavour to uphold the dignity of the civic office and the respect it enjoys throughout Leicestershire. Part of that is I'm also hoping to enhance it slightly in that the role doesn't have a presence on social media. So I've asked officers to set up chairman's pages, social media stuff. Most of the other organisations have their central role, or their ceremonial role, rather civic role, does have. Police and Crime Commissioner, for example, has his own social media. I just feel it's something important that then we can all hear what, in this case, my chairmanship has been doing during the year. It's not personal, this is purely what the role has done. I just think it's important that people, not just us, 55 members, but also obviously the rest of the community know what's been going on. So I'm looking forward to working with my vice chairman, who, if you don't know, is due to be Dan for the ensuing year. So we've done a good swap there. And so from your incoming chairman, thank you for your support, and I look forward to working with you all, both in this chamber and beyond. So thank you very much. So I now, agenda item 2, I'm going to invite nominations, therefore, for the appointment of vice chairman. Mr. Rushton.
Chairman, I'd like to move Councillor Harrison. As you know, Chairman, he was press ganged into doing chairman straight off. So I think him doing vice chairman for a year will be a good experience. He's been elected here since 2017, and you can hear from his speech that will be a good help to you if required, Chairman. But in the meantime, we're putting him on loads and loads of scrutiny committees. Thank you.
And Mr. Mullany.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And on behalf of the Liberal Democrat Group, very happy to support the nomination of Dan as Vice Chairman of the County Council. Dan, as we have heard, enjoys the respect of his fellow councillors across the Chamber, and I hope he enjoys continuing his civic duties, and I wish him every success.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mullany. I declare, therefore, that Mr. Dan Harrison be appointed Vice Chairman for the period until the next annual meeting of the Council.
Which way round is it coming?
You've got to move around, don't we?
I'll bring it to you.
Do you want to come across? Yeah, come there. Oh, that's right. Oh, I see. Coming.
I, Dan Harrison of 32 Wilfred Gardens, Ashby-de-la-Zouch, in the county of Leicestershire, having been elected to the office of Vice Chairman of the Leicestershire County Council, do hereby declare that I take the said office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties thereafter according to the best of my judgment and ability. Thank you.
Agenda item 3, Chairman's announcements. It is with sadness that I report the death of former County Councillor Mr. Clifford Stanley and former Chief Constable Simon Cole. Cliff Stanley was a member of the County Council from 2001 to 2009 and represented the Green Hill electoral division. He served mainly on the Children and Young Persons Scrutiny Committee and the Employment and Standards Committee. Simon Cole. It is with great sadness that I report the death of the former Chief Constable Simon Cole, who was a resident of my own Kibworth Harcourt and indeed a friend. Simon was the youngest and longest serving Chief Constable, and we've lost an outstanding public servant whose main mission in life was to make our communities stronger and safer. During his 12 years as head of Leicestershire Police, he earned the respect and admiration of everyone we worked with. I invite the Council to stand in silent tribute to the memory of Mr. Clifford Stanley and Mr. Simon Cole. Thank you very much. Falklands War Remembrance. On Tuesday 14th of June at 3 o'clock, I will be holding a small remembrance service here at Stand Easy to commemorate the ending of the Falklands War in 1982. The timing of the event is to coincide with the act of remembrance which will be taking place at the 1982 cemetery in Port Stanley, down in Falkland Islands, for those who don't remember it, at 11 o'clock local time. I do hope members will be able to join me. Armed Forces Day. As a prelude to Armed Forces Day, I'll be hosting an Armed Forces Day flag-raising ceremony at our Stand Easy ceremony, a memorial. On Monday 20th of June at 10:30, again, all members will be invited, and I do hope you'll be able to join me. On Saturday 25th of June, together with the Lord Lieutenant and Lord Mayor of Leicester, I'll be attending Armed Forces Day in Leicester City. There will be a parade of service personnel, veterans and cadets through the streets of Leicester. Following the parade, there will be an outside drumhead service in Queen Dragon Square. I would ask all members, if they can, to come into the city and watch this fitting tribute to our armed forces and veterans. Summer reception. I'm pleased to inform members that I will be hosting summer reception at Bow Manor Hall on Thursday, 26th of July at 6:30 p.m. I do hope that members of the County Council will be able to join me, and you'll receive invitations and further details in due course. We're also hoping to have some musical interludes. I tried to get Kasabian, but told the budget didn't go that far. County service. I'll be hosting a county service later in the year, probably October, but all members again will receive an invitation in due course. Domestic abuse. In the members' lounge today, members will have seen a range of exhibits about domestic abuse. These are from an exhibition titled Expression of Freedom, which ran at Stevenson College, Colville, in November. Developed by the Safer North West Leicestershire Partnership, the showcase is an artistic collaboration between Leicestershire-based artists and groups supported by Leicestershire County Council's Children and Family Wellbeing Service. A series of creative workshops were commissioned by the Safer North West Leicestershire Partnership to explore the context of abuse in relationships with a range of people and use art to reflect, heal and empower. There are plans to develop this project in 2022 and hold a county-wide exhibition during the national 16 Days of Action to Eradicate Abuse campaign, which is in November. Alongside the exhibition, a new game was being showcased. This is called Talking Relationships. This has been developed by young people from the Cycle and young people from Leicester City and Rutland, with support from UAVA. The game is in the style of top trumps to enable conversations about elements of a relationship, including respect, trust, honesty, compromise, communication, and anger. Visitors. I welcome to the meeting all visitors and guests of members, and of course anyone who is joining us on the webcast today. Agenda item number 4, minutes. I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 23rd of February 2022, copies of which have been circulated to members, be taken as read, confirmed and signed. Mr Harrison, will you second?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 5, declarations of interest. I invite members who wish to do so to make declarations of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting. Are there any such declarations? Good, thank you. Agenda item number 6. Questions asked under Standing Order 7, 1, 2 and 5. The questions and replies set out in the order paper will be taken as read and entered into the minutes. Mr Hunt, I believe you have supplementary questions to both questions A and B.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and may I congratulate you on your acceptance of office. My question refers to question and answer 5, and it is reference to an addition that's been made to the answers on question 7, indicating there has been a lot of public criticism on safety grounds to the new paving on Ward's End in Loughborough, which was a project of the Borough Council. I echo those concerns, and I've actually spoken to people who have tripped, and as elderly people trip, it is more serious than young people, and there has been an article in the Leicester Mercury, I think, highlighting a gentleman who broke bones, I think, in his knee and leg, very serious. And I have spoken to a cyclist, an experienced cyclist actually, coming out of Ward's End, who had tripped whilst walking her cycle. So clearly the concerns expressed by this additional paragraph are real and they're dangerous, and we can only, I guess, wait for further instances and monitor that. That's all that seems to be being done in Loughborough at any rate. But I'm confused, and I think most people will be confused by the detail on answer 5, which refers to section 278 of the Highways Act, where the County Council sets out to agree the broad outlines, it would seem, from this answer, of the project before handing over to the Borough Council. So the Borough Council signs an agreement with the County Council that the project will be built as specified. But, it says at the end, any variations will be inspected and if necessary defects will be addressed prior to issuing a final certificate. Now, I'd plead with the County Council on this, if that is indeed possible, and I'm seeking clarification that even at this stage, as it nears completion, the County Council will be able to inspect and, if necessary, demand defects or changes prior to the final certificate being issued. It's not clear whether
you finished the question mark there, I hope, because it was quite a long statement before you got to the question.
I do beg your pardon, but the question is that final certificate issued by default, or have we got the power at that stage to amend the project?
Mr. Chairman, to answer Mr. Hunt, we will inspect that before we give a certificate out, I can assure you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And question B, you have a supplementary for, I gather? But we need a question.
As you'll realise, Chair, the question revolves around the confusion between reducing the number of cuts in urban areas, which was announced in the MTFS as a project in hand, and whether that applies to the the wildflower project, which was announced in a press release recently. The two seem to be confused, and I think at the very least we need a very clear, if the leader will agree, a very clear explanation of where those two meet, or if they meet at all, and what reduction in cuts in urban areas are being proposed or are likely to be proposed.
Thank you. Mr. Payne, are you going to...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations. I believe the answer is exceedingly clear. The current number of urban cuts is a minimum of 6 per year.
Thank you very much. Oops. Right. Agenda item number 7 is to receive position statements from members of the Cabinet. I now invite the leader to make his position statement.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations. Can I just make a couple of brief announcements which aren't written down? So, first of all, welcome back to a proper seating arrangement for full council. I think it's a lot better than it was in the past, and at least we're sitting together. Can I congratulate Amanda on becoming Labour Group Leader? Well done, Amanda. I want to work with you. I get on well with you personally. If you have any problems, please get hold of me. And on my position statement, there's quite a bit of talk in here about County Deal. I will convene a group leaders meeting on the 27th of April, straight after Cabinet, if you two new guys can come along, myself and Deborah, and the Chief will come and explain to you where we are. Having said that, I'm aware that that members will be reasonably familiar with the devolution framework in the Levelling Up White Paper, levels 1, 2 and 3, and of course any member who is not aware, if you contact the Chief or Tom Pennell or someone, will explain to you where we are. I said in my position statement in February that we wanted to get a deal as close as possible to level 3. In other words, we wanted a deal in line to some extent with our bid, which we were encouraged to make last year. We went to a lot of trouble with it, but right at the last minute when the white paper came out, it referred to a functional economic area. And of course, governments say Leicestershire on its own is not a functional economic area. I also said in February that we'll be looking to work with Leicester and Rutland, which the white paper suggested would be appropriate in our case. I'm now able to inform Council that discussions with government about the scope of the bid have concluded, and we are only able to bid for a level 2 deal. Unfortunately, this means that the ambitious elements which we are still encouraged to include after the white paper was published, such as the Better Care Fund for Children and Young People, which countrywide that was taken as innovative and exciting, will not be allowed to be included. Gain share funding to support road infrastructure, again, which was something which we really wanted, because as we all know, every area of the county is suffering from massive development, so we need the infrastructure. That cannot be included. Funding for buses, that cannot be included. And further funding for broadband cannot be included in our bid. So we'll have to wait for another day. This is certainly disappointing, but although it would be wrong not to go into detail about, we can't go into detail about our discussions with government. Civil servants wouldn't speak to me, so the Chief and his team were one that carried out the negotiations with civil servants. They are clear that we should proceed from here with a level 2 bid covering Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland on a non-mayoral combined authority to be made up of upper tier authorities only, but obviously involving the districts. That is the model authority set out in the white paper and will now be taken forward to legislation. Lastly, it is also clear that we're not able to bid for a level 3 deal with the so-called D2N2, that has been precluded, and we're also not allowed to bid for a level 3 deal where we had 2 mayors, obviously the city mayor who's imposed a new mayor for the county. So unfortunately we're type of stuck where we are, and even more bad news really. The next bit of bad news is that the next negotiations will all be about governance, which is particularly disappointing, but we will carry on. I shall be meeting the Mayor first of all on Thursday, and I'm going to meet the new leader of Rutland, Lucy, as soon as Lorna's set it up for me to see if we can make sure that we can proceed on a level 2 deal. And in all honesty, despite our disappointment that we're not level 3, at least we're in the race. You know, a lot of areas are not in the race at all. So my analogy is when we first put the bid in August, September, we were in the yellow shirt. Now we're just stuck in the peloton, but at least we're in the race, and a lot of counties would like to be where we are. It will be a marathon as well, not a sprint, so we're just going to have to KBO, as Churchill said. UK Share Prosperity Fund and Levelling Up. As part of the government's commitment to delivering up on its Levelling Up agenda, the county and the districts can bid into 2 new funding pots this summer. Bidding takes time and resource, but maximise funding coming into Leicestershire is of paramount importance. That is why we have reached out to the district council so they pull together Levelling Up bids and Share UK Prosperity Fund investment plans, and we've offered to help strengthen their proposals and support the coordination of bids across the county. Tackling the cost of living crisis, well, we all know how bad that is. You know, gas, food, everything's going up. Inflation's hit 8 or 9% now. So we recognise the impact of the cost of living crisis on individuals and families throughout Leicestershire. This county council has a strong record of supporting vulnerable households, and the deputy leader will outline after me some of the actions taken. The council has also been working alongside district councils to make sure the government miss out on government funding allocated to district councils to ensure energy efficient measures in those homes most in need of support. As a result, over the next year, more than £3 million will be spent making Leicestershire homes warmer and tackling the crucial issue of rising energy prices. Later on the agenda for this meeting, there's a notice of motion which refers to a LLR-wide group, looking at how we can work together to address the issue and build on the work we have already started. Supporting Afghan refugees, I'm very proud of the way Leicestershire residents have stepped up to support those fleeing the conflict in Ukraine, the way local people have raised money and donated goods to support those seeking refuge has been humbling. An extra special mention should go to those in the county who have offered to host Ukrainians in their home, and I know that to date over 700 applications have been made for Ukrainians who will be hosted by sponsors in Leicestershire. A significant minority of those have already arrived in the county, and the councils work closely with partners to make sure they are supported on their arrival. And in my view, you know, most of these are females with children, and most of the ones that I've come across are already actively wanting to work and get their children into school. So we really do need to help them quickly to assimilate into our society. And in all honesty, I think once the war is over, I think the majority will want to go back, because the males are actually there fighting, and these are ladies with husbands or boyfriends back in Ukraine. So if we can help them get into work and their children into school, I think it'll show us in a really good light internationally. Our preparations obviously have not been helped by the quality and timeliness of data provided by the government, but we're happy to report that local partners are working well together to make sure that Ukrainian guests and their sponsors get the support they need and richly deserved. I'm particularly pleased that our office will be liaising closely with the Ukraine Centre in Leicester. Their input is helping the council and partners to make sure that the local response is as effective as possible. With regard to the notice of motion on providing free bus passes, we will look how best to accommodate this. I have great sympathy with it, and when I think it was Michael proposed it, I thought, really good idea, and we'll do our best to help them. Because as I said, I think it's only in the early months when they want help to get out, to get into work, to find out how things operate around where they live. And obviously the problem we've got as well is a lot of them have actually come into the more rural areas. So where Kevin is a member and Phil is the leader, Harborough has the most applications out of anyone in the county, which is difficult really. Supporting our economy and delivering economic growth, this council continues to support businesses, including through the provision and advice and guidance and providing space for innovative businesses to expand and locate in the county. We're working with partners and the LEP to support the local economy's recovery from COVID, and we'll work with partners to secure the funding we need to provide key infrastructure and improve skills. There is, however, an area of major concern. Continuing to forward fund major schemes arising from districts' local plans is going to be incredibly difficult and impossible in some cases, with inflation making matters far worse than we ever imagined. Going forward, we'll need to be innovative in identifying sources of funding for capital, including working with planning authorities and developers to ensure infrastructure required to support economic and housing growth is fully funded, and maintaining sound financial management of the resources that the County Council has to meet this challenge. And as I've always said in here, I am not opposed to any development, but I am opposed to building boxes on spy roads. If we can build houses and build communities, they're a lot more acceptable to members of the public than boxes on spine roads with no infrastructure. Fair funding, well, we continue to be, well, I think we're actually the lowest funded now, but we continue to campaign for a fair funding deal. As you know, we formed the F20 group. Chris Tambini, our Director of Resources, is the leading Director of Resources on the group. We're made up of all the lower funded councils, and the council's financial position, both in relation to capital and revenue funds, is grave. Existing service demand pressures are being compounded by high inflation, which we're all experiencing, but if you look at construction inflation in particular, that is approaching 20%. And it's even exacerbated by the fact that sometimes you can't even get anyone to quote. When the quote comes back, it's high, but often they don't even bother quoting because they're too busy doing what they've already quoted for, because there are not enough people for the jobs that are available now. So yesterday they announced unemployment was down to, I don't know, under 3%, but job vacancies were above 4%. So we've got a problem not only with not enough people for the job, but matching the skills with the job. So, for instance, just as an aside, you cannot get a chef for love nor money. They just will not apply for the jobs. So that's just one thing. Truck drivers, still like hen's teeth. You know, you'd think that there'd be people around that can do these jobs, but unfortunately there isn't. Green Leicestershire. Fresh proposals designed to tackle climate change and make Leicestershire a net zero carbon county have been published recently. The draft Leicestershire Net Zero 2045 Strategy and Action Plan sets out Leicestershire County Council's plan to join forces with residents, councils, businesses, universities and others in the race to net zero carbon from the county. Tackling climate change across the whole of Leicestershire is too big a job for any one organisation. The plan sets out how we can work together to get to net zero by 2045. A cleaner, greener Leicestershire has much wider benefits for our health and our economy, and everyone can make changes to help make it reality. We all have a role to play, and collectively we can make a big difference. So what we're saying here is Leicestershire County Council can do its best on its own, but we're only a minute part of the county. But we all need everyone on all levels, business, other levels of local authority, health, police, everyone needs to be pointing in the right direction, because it's only together we can actually make the differences that are required to hit net zero by 2045. Now, I'm proud to say that it says Talisca Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. So I'd like you to know here that Craig Smith, who's the County Council for Colville North, is to lead a team of 4 friends taking part in what is billed as the world's toughest race, the Talisca Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. It's 3,000 miles of unsupported rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. Sooner him than me. The race doesn't begin till 2025. It departs from La Gomera in the Canary Islands. There'll be 40 crews expected to spend anywhere between 29 to 75 days at sea on average, and it finishes at Nelson's Dockyard in Antigua. Craig's team has been named Anchor Management, and it's a mixed crew of 4. So I think Craig will probably speak after me in a little bit, but I think it's 2 ladies and 2 men. They're not only aiming to just complete it, which in my view is an achievement in itself, they're also hoping to meet the mixed crew world record of 40 days and 23 hours, which set by a British Army crew. He's hoping to raise 200,000 for Macmillan Cancer Support. A charity told special meaning to the crew, in particular Sarah, who 7 years ago was diagnosed with breast cancer. As well as raising funds, they also help to raise awareness of the beauty and fragility of the ocean and urge people to take action to protect it for future generations. Craig's crew are in the chamber with us today, and I'm sure we'll all want to wish them every success and assist them in raising funds for the Macmillan Cancer. So Craig will say a few words towards the end. He's looking for corporate sponsors to start with, so obviously we're not particularly corporate, but we might have friends who are corporate. And I've said to Craig, once he's got his sponsorship, they've got the boat, as it happens. But when he's starting to look for personal sponsorship, he'll be coming to you all, and let's hope we can all help contribute. And I've also offered Craig, Chief, the assistance of our PR department. So when he puts stuff out, and he's really, really good on his social media, as it happens, that we can perhaps retweet it, repost it, or wherever, because we've got probably slightly better reach than Craig. And with that, I'll sit down. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Mullaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in response to the statement, firstly, my congratulations as well to Amanda on taking on the role of leadership of the Labour group. And congratulations to Craig and the team who are taking part in the Atlantic Challenge rowing race in favour of a very good cause, Macmillan Cancer Support, and I'm sure all the members in the chamber will support that endeavour. And I welcome the mention of support for Ukrainian refugees and hope we can support the motion on bus passes later today. As we know, the biggest challenge that we have is that we are, the worst funded county in the country. And I note today the strong words in the statement around fair funding, which says that the council's financial position, both in relation to capital and revenue funding, is grave. So it's very worrying, particularly with the increases in inflation, as well as the continued lack of support through the lack of delivery of fair funding. And because we weren't getting fair funding, because the increased income was going towards the red wall areas that the government was targeting, we were depending really upon the county deal to at least try and rescue the county to some degree in terms of delivering funding. And it is really disappointing today to hear that there really is no prospect of a level 3 deal, and that many of the funding opportunities won't be open to Leicestershire. And that is very, very worrying and very concerning that the best we can hope for is a level 2 deal, which is really an inadequate alternative to the failure of the government to deliver fair funding. So unfortunately, Leicestershire continues to be unfairly treated. We obviously hope that something can come of the county deal, but unfortunately it seems an incredibly disappointing situation that on both the fair funding and the county deal, we aren't seeing the support being delivered to Leicestershire by this Tory government, despite the fact that we continue to elect them locally. So I hope it changes, but it doesn't look like it's going to, and unfortunately it's going to be a very difficult time for this county and the rest of the country, unfortunately.
Thank you, Ms Mullaney. Mrs.
Thank you, Chair. I too add my congratulations or commiserations to wanting to train to go into the water for quite that long, rather you than me. I certainly don't have sea legs, so congratulations. I hope it goes really well. I think, just reflecting on the leader's statement, we've been talking about fair funding at every council meeting I've been and I've been a councillor for just 5 years. I'm sure it continued beforehand. The disappointment that I'm sure the leader has with not reaching a level 3 bid under the county deal adds to that disappointment. So at the moment, Leicestershire is in the situation where we continue to be lowly funded by the Conservatives in Westminster. I'm sure that is something that the Conservatives locally feel a bit cross about. I mean, I certainly would in your position. I look forward to hearing from the leader in greater detail at our catch-up meeting later in the month. I think the thing that really strikes me, though, is the loss to Leicestershire residents, that the drop down from level to tier 3 down to tier 2. Better care fund for children and young people, to me, seem like a huge opportunity for us. We have so many challenges in this area, particularly as an authority, and sadly those challenges will continue without additional funding coming forward. I think that the elements, the cost of living crisis, that will come later on the order paper, but I just wanted to add my thank you to the Leicestershire residents for the work that they are doing across Leicestershire, supporting Ukrainian refugees. The images we've seen on the TV cannot go unnoticed about their homes, the way in which those families have been ripped apart. The work that we're doing here in Leicestershire will give them some comfort, and I think that is, we should be incredibly proud of that. I suppose the last thing I wanted to to sort of come back on is levelling up. And in every single part of this session about getting more cash, we're bidding, we're using county resources, we're using people, to the effort it goes in to creating the bid, doing the deals, to then be unsuccessful. That effort then goes to waste. And I think what would be important to us is to make sure that we're using the resources in the right place, because we keep bidding, but we're not getting anywhere. And I think that must be also be part of the leader's frustration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I currently have 4 members who today they want to speak. 5 now. Oh, yeah, sorry, Craig. I've got you. So, as I said, I think we'll draw a line there. Mrs. Taylor.
Thank you, and congratulations, Mr. Chairman, on your appointment. First thing I'll just mention is the UK Levelling Up Fund and the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and I was delighted to see that the County Council has provisionally been allocated 2.9 million through the government's multiplying fund, which will focus on improving numeracy skills. An investment plan will be developed working closely with universities, further education colleges and business, and a 3-year programme of delivery should commence in the autumn. Just touching on the tackling of the cost of living crisis, I thought it would be useful just to outline some of the ways in which we've been supporting vulnerable households. So we have the crisis and hardship support through the food, fuel, furniture and white goods provision. Support for citizens advice services to help people to manage debt and money, remain in employment, improve their health and well-being and stay in their homes. We have accommodation and support services for homeless people. We have the holiday food support and free holiday activity clubs for families and children who are eligible for free school meals, and the Shire grant support for charities and so-called enterprises supporting vulnerable people. This administration remains committed to continuing to help people with the rising cost of living over the coming months, and the Council will be deploying an additional 3.6 million of government funding to boost crisis and hardship support. We will continue to provide the holiday food for families of 12,000 pupils across Leicestershire eligible for free school meals and support struggling pensioners and families with food and fuel costs. On to the supporting Ukrainian refugees. Amongst arrangements put in place by the Council is the reception desk at East Midlands Airport, which provides an initial welcome to Ukrainians arriving here and also provides any advice or urgent support they may have. In relation to this, I must particularly thank the many Council staffs who volunteered to run the desk every day from early in the morning until after the last flight has arrived in the evening. I was very happy to actually go to East Midlands Airport and meet the staff there and look at the setup there, and it's a fantastic arrangement that we have in place. We have arrangements also in place for district councils to carry out the necessary checks of sponsors' home and for the county council to undertake safeguarding, DBS and welfare checks. As soon as we are aware that Ukrainian aggressors arrived, they have each sent a payment card with the subsistence payments of 200, and we are asking the sponsors to make sure they contact us when their guests arrive, otherwise we won't actually know that they've arrived. So that's really important that sponsors do let us know that they have Ukrainian refugees staying with them. And we've also set up the system for making the £300 per month payments to the sponsor, and also when they contact us they will be able to register to get their payments from us as well. We're also liaising with schools to ensure that school places are provided for our young Ukrainians arriving. Obviously, it does take a few weeks for us to get those school places, so we do ask people just to bear with us, but we are working as fast as we can to get those school places for those young people that are arriving from Ukraine. And where guests requires any other support, for example, in relation to employment, training, health or social care, etc., we're signposting them to the relevant services. With regard to the national motives on providing free bus passes, the Cabinet will look at how best we may accommodate that request later on in this meeting. And I would just like to add my special thanks to Gurjit Samarai for leading our team here. She comes under my portfolio, and she's pulled all this together in an incredible short period of time and leading a really good team there, so I would like to put on record my thanks for her. And finally, I'll just finish, good luck to Craig and his team on the quest. He has my full support, and I will be cheering from the safety of dry land for him and his team. Thank you.
Mr. Brecken.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulations. Can I just pick up and expand on 3 points that the leader mentioned in his statement? On the UK Shared Prosperity Fund with the Levelling Up funds, County Council will be submitting an ambitious £35 million structural maintenance and minor improvement proposal centred on Zott Bridge in Charnwood. The aim of this scheme will be to create a more resilient corridor along the A6006 between the M1 and the A46. Secondly, on the economy and economic growth, the Council has invested £100,000 in the National Kickstart programme, doubling the time young people on universal credit are supported to work and thereby strengthening their chances of securing longer-term employment. The Council's highly regarded Work and Skills programme, in which we are investing £340,000 over 2 years, continues to make a real difference to those seeking advice on training and employment. As the lead authority and accountable body, the Council has played a key role in progressing the East Midlands Freeport. Local partners have grasped the opportunity offered by government to establish the only inland freeport in the UK, an initiative which will generate substantial jobs, investment, innovation and substantial green growth for the local, regional and national economies. Tax sites have been designated by the government, the final business case has been submitted and work is underway to recruit a permanent chair and an executive delivery team. We should not forget this council's capital programme totalling 515 million over 4 years with this MTFS, and a significant proportion of this represents the council's investment in growth, service improvements and investor-saved projects. The programme includes 240 million for roads and highways infrastructure, which includes £165 million for a range of schemes to improve Leicester's road network, much of which is funded by developers and the government. 87 million for schools, with the majority, £63 million, invested in new places to meet the demand in our growing county, and a significant investment of £14 million for children with special educational needs and disabilities, supporting the delivery of better outcomes with more local, lower cost provision. 67 million for continued investment in new workspaces and industrial units through our Corporate Asset Investment Fund. This will support the economy and reduce the need for County Council to make savings through a reliable income stream. And finally, on this subject, £34 million investment in adults and children's social care to boost accommodation that supports living to live in more appropriate settings, including more independent living. This does include £18 million of the Disabled Facilities Grant. Finally, I'll finish on fair funding. Fair funding has not only had a significant impact on our ability to provide high quality services, but also results in some perverse differentials between the areas. For instance, in Leicestershire, if Leicestershire was funded the same level as Surrey, we'd be £115 million better off, and we'd be £292 million better off a year if we were funded at Camden's level. Someone living in a 3-bedroom semi within Leicestershire has to pay more council tax than a Russian oligarch would have done for his 15-bedroom house worth at least £150 million in Kensington Palace Gardens. This is unfair, it's unjust, and it's simply wrong. The continued use of outdated formulas to distribute new grants is further campaigning the inequalities of the system. This has to be addressed by government as a matter of urgency. We will continue to work with our MPs to fight for fair funding, and we are pleased that the settlement we currently have highlights that local government refunding is back on the agenda, although very disappointed with its slow progress. Unfair funding has to be made fair. The MTFS remains prudent and is based on an assumption that no significant additional funding will be available to us in the current MTFS period. A couple of people have mentioned fair funding. We started the fair funding campaign 5 years ago, but it has been delayed by Brexit, then we had COVID, and now we've got the conflicts in Ukraine. Government is busy, we accept this. Over recent years, we have done lots. We've campaigned, we've met MPs, we've met ministers. We met the future Chancellor when he was a local government minister. We then met him as a Chancellor on his recent visit to Leicestershire with the Prime Minister. We have met civil servants, met special advisors, presented to Institute of Fiscal Studies. We've written articles and we've set up the F20, and we will continue to do more of the same. Only this morning, Chris Tambini and Joe Miller joined myself to talk with the East Midlands manager for the Centre for Social Justice, which is a think tank in Westminster, who want to understand why we are so poorly funded. And also they want to improve the spending power for all residents in Leicestershire. Thanks to Ted Parton for introducing us this morning for that. It isn't just the current government. We've been bottom of the pile for fair funding under Labour governments, coalition governments and now our Conservative government. It is not just the politicians we need to convince, but it's also the civil service. There is a deep-rooted resistance for change. In this chamber we will need to push our MPs for fairer funding. If we do not, the 400 services that we provide as a county council will be affected, as our position is not maintainable and something has to give. Remember, it took many years to improve education funding. In fact, it took 20 years after the F40 was formed for funding to stop being improved. We are working at it and we'll work at it for as long as it takes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Breckham. Mr. Payne.
Thank you. Before I offer some helpful information with regards to the Green Agenda, I've noticed a lot of pinging on these laptops that we have open. For those members that probably aren't aware, key F1 on the laptop is a mute button, and that will stop the pinging from taking place. So if you wish to press that, we can save ourselves some noise pollution in the chamber. Anyway, regarding the Green Agenda, informing and involving our communities is crucial for the success of the Leicestershire Net Zero 2045 Strategy and Action Plan. To kick this off, a major 3-month consultation has been launched, enabling people to have their say on the key challenges ahead. The plan includes key facts and figures to show the current picture and the pathways to net zero. There are several case studies to highlight what we are already doing, such as running electric park and ride buses and converting our fleet of vehicles to run on green fuel, building eco-friendly schools and planting 700,000 trees, one for every resident, and supporting households to reduce their energy consumption. Areas earmarked for action, which will have the biggest impact, are reducing carbon emissions generated by transport, reducing energy use in buildings, and adding new renewable energy generation, supporting businesses to go green and grow the low-carbon economy, and increasing the removal and storage of carbon in natural systems like soil and forests. In the MTFS, 12 million has been earmarked for specific carbon and energy reduction projects, which will also generate efficiency savings for the County Council, and recycling and waste initiatives to improve how we deal with household waste. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Payne.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'd like to offer, as a fellow Kibworth resident, congratulations on you becoming chair of the council. So thank you. Just wanted to say that. Second thing, just wanted to say in response to the leader's comments about the Ukrainian refugees, government data and my own experience is currently over a third, 34%, as of the 10th of May, of all Ukrainian refugees who've come through the sponsored homes route are currently located in the Harbour District. And as you rightly mentioned, that does place a great deal of pressure on a rural district council, which I also happen to be leader of, in terms of resources that we have available to us. But I am very grateful for the work that the County Council and the officers have been doing in this regard, and look forward to improving and ironing out some of the glitches that we're currently experiencing, because at the end of the day we all want the same thing, which is a good outcome for the Ukrainian refugees. And obviously I think we need to put more pressure back onto the Minister and the Home Office to encourage them to improve what they're doing. But finally, Chairman, just want to make a comment about the county deal and Devo deal. And I'm slightly, not by what the leader said, because I do understand that, but what the opposition group is saying. Really, what I'm concerned about is whether, in fact, the Labour-run city mayor and his city council are actually a roadblock here to us actually getting the level 3, because it's only if the city mayor had agreed to this, as I understand, we could have got a level 3 deal. So I do find it a bit rich, the opposition groups on the council commenting and saying they're disappointed. I would think they need to express their disappointment to the city mayor that he's currently stopping the city and county getting in the level of investment that the government is offering through a level 3 deal. And that, I think, is something we all need to focus on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations. I'd just like to thank Mr. Rushton for your kind words, and also for members for their support as well on our endeavour. We're quite a way away yet. We're 3 years away. So I think it's rather than talking about the how we're going to do it, it's more why we're going to do it. The how is actually really easy. The rowing is the easy part. It's just training, and more training. It's the why we're actually doing this. We're all a group, bar one, of 40-somethings, rapidly approaching that half century. And some would argue past our physical peak as well. Yet we're taking on Mother Nature at a full force in the world's toughest challenge. And it's going to be hell. Sleep deprivation, food deprivation, 2 hours on, 2 hours off for the best part of 2 months. But the reason that we want to do this is to show that the mental strength that we have within ourselves, but also to show young people that you can achieve anything if you have that strength within yourself. And one of the toughest people that I know is actually on my crew, and that's Sarah. So 7 years ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, a young family of three young children. And so obviously that's more devastating than anything. It's a horrible time anyway. And through the help that Macmillan gave them, they were able not only to complete the treatment, but she's become a full cancer survivor, and she's fitter now than she's ever been in her life, and she's undertaking that row. So both myself, the rest of my crew, we're in absolute awe of you, no pun intended. Okay, but what we would like is anybody that is able to help us with the funding. We're going to need around about £120,000 to get onto the water, onto the start line itself. The race entrance fee is 25k alone. So any introductions that members can make, both myself and my crew will be more than happy. We'd love to bring the boat here to you as well at some point. We pick her up next March. She's got another voyage across the Atlantic this December, but when she comes back, we'd love, with your permission, Chairman, to bring her and let you all have a climb over her as well. Thank you very much.
Wow, follow that.
Cheers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations on taking your office this afternoon. I wasn't going to really speak, but I think I want to put something on record here. Attacking the city and the city mayor because they're Labour and saying that it's a stumbling block to getting level 3, I think it's a bit out of order, actually. I've sat in this chamber for over a decade now, and all I've heard is about fairer funding and fairer funding and fairer funding. And if you're ever going to blame anybody, it should be the administration that you're a part of, because you've failed to deliver fairer funding for over a decade that I've been sitting here, with a Conservative government as the majority government for most, if not all of that decade. So saying that a Labour administration and a Labour city mayor is a stumbling block to us getting a deal is well out of order. And I know Councillor Nick Rushton has a very good relationship with Sir Peter Salisbury, and hopefully that comment will be struck off from our records, because I don't think we should be attacking the City Council for something that Conservative councillors, county councillors have failed to deliver for the residents of Leicestershire. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Rushton, you have the right to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, to Craig, in going last first, if you keep me updated and you want anything announcing in a position statement, I will always announce it for you. So anything that's interesting that you're doing, please let me know and I'll announce it to all members. And yeah, please bring the boat. The chief and the officer call find you a parking space for it. I'm not sure how you get it here. I presume you don't row it here, but please bring it. I'm sure people will be want to see it. In regards to Joel and Phil, it is true that we cannot have a level 3 county deal without a directly elected mayor for what is described as a functional economic area, which is Leicestershire and Leicester City. So Phil is right in the fact that if SPS won't accept a directly elected mayor for the city and the county, we cannot bid for level 3. So we're not being rude. Phil's pointing out the pure facts that level 3 is off the table, because when we bid for a county deal, which we thought was just Leicestershire. My group swallowed the idea of a mayor, and it wasn't universally popular, I'll tell you that, so we went with that. But when the white paper came out, it talked about functional economic area. And without the city, we are not a functional economic area. Can I also say, Phil, thanks very much for your support over Ukraine. I know you're under a burden down there. Well, not a burden. I know you've got a lot more guests than other areas. To a certain extent, Phil, it's because you're an affluent area with people with bigger houses. But with that comes the problems that they're not close to the towns, and they're certainly not close to the city and the services. But we're grateful for your support and like to work with you. To Michael and to Amanda, obviously fair funding with KBO, it is difficult, and you can imagine with the Ukraine crisis and COVID crisis and poverty crisis, fuel price crisis, that fair funding is probably in slightly longer grasp than it was before. But we must carry on, because without fair funding, we will still be the bottom of the pile. And as it's been said by Lee, it took 30 years to get some funding for schools, but we did get some, so we must carry on. In terms of bidding, Amanda, it is a very, very good point, but if you look at the white paper, and that's where the chief scuttled off to get me the exact wording so I can read it to you, the white paper, this is for level 2, the white paper talks about simplifying the complex funding landscape. It also gives details of Leicestershire's wasteful experience in bidding for different funding pots. We gave this information to Neil, so that's probably why it got in there. Since the white paper was published, we've had 2 approaches from DLUC, Department for Homes, Levelling Up and Communities, civil servants, to learn more from our experience. There are further calls planned at their request, so they won't speak to me because they're civil servants, but they will speak to the chief and his people. I think it's fair, and this is slightly political, but I think the problem possibly lies with the Treasury, not with DLUC, who seem to like competition, whereas, as you rightly point out, and we all know, we waste thousands of hours on bidding. We're often successful, but then sometimes we're not successful, and that is money and officer time wasted, which could be better spent on doing things locally. So we're saying hopefully that someone in government will see the sense that millions of pounds are being wasted in the bidding process. But for the start off, we've got to talk about how we're going to run the blooming thing for a couple of 3 months before we can get into the nitty-gritty of what we're actually going to get. But as everybody says, we're in the race. Lots of people aren't in the race at all. And level 2 is better than nothing. So I'm sorry, but that's what we've got to do. And myself and Deborah will do all we can and report back to you and to all of us here, but to you on leaders' meetings whenever we need your support. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Leader. Just one bit of experience I've just had of this Ukrainian situation. I've helped a family come up to my village of Kibworth and talking to, trying to talk to them because they don't speak English. I mean, 1 or 2 words, yes, please and thank you and goodbye and hello, but don't speak English. And worse than that, of course, they can't read English. They understand Cyrillic. And I took the lady into the job centre the other day, and the first question she got asked by the lady who was sorting out all the details of universal credit and so on, which she had stuff on the screen because she had already been registered, date of birth. My friend Oksana looked at her and looked at me. I managed to use Google Translate and typed in date of birth. It gave her a whole load of Cyrillic. It's that basic. And going on a bus. Which bus? You know, they don't understand what the word Leicester or Market Harbour means. I mean, they will eventually, of course. But it's just really at the basic level, just how little it is and how much help they need. Anyway, sorry about that. Right. I've made the glasses, I can see what's going on. Agenda item 8 there for report to the Cabinet. Leicestershire County Council Strategic Plan 2002 to 2026. Mr Rushton.
Chairman, I'd like to formally move that Strategic Plan 2226, that's set out in Appendix A to the report, be approved. I'm delighted to move this motion to approve the strategic plan for the aforementioned years. The strategic plan and the MTFS are critical documents for the Council. They set out long-term vision and priorities for Leicestershire. The strategic plan outlines how the Council will transform its operations in response to key drivers such as the climate emergency, financial pressures, changing customer expectations. The Council's vision is summarised by 5 aspirational outcomes. These are clean and green, great communities, improved opportunities, strong economy, transport and infrastructure, safe and well. Development of the plan has included significant engagement with a broad range of stakeholders, including officers and members, residents, service users, partners and community groups. A 16-week public consultation undertaken between November 1, 2021 and 18th of February 2022 received over 450 written responses, which indicate substantial support for the 5 outcomes. Pam leads on this, Pam will second and Pam will say more. Thank you, Chairman.
Pam.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and congratulations on your new post. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. As the leader has said, this is a critical document. The plan is ambitious and is only deliverable if there is a collective effort by all departments working together across the 5 outcomes. In addition, many of these outcomes can only be delivered working closely with partners. Recognising this, we have decided to establish outcome boards to drive forward the commitments made in the plan. Each outcome board will be chaired by a chief officer, and each department of the council will be represented by a senior officer. This will ensure that there is a two-way dialogue between the outcome boards and department management teams, so that we can identify both the challenges and opportunities in delivering the outcomes. The Council's corporate management team will receive regular highlights from the outcome board. Cabinet and Cabinet lead members will also be updated regularly, and we will include updates in the quarterly performance reports to scrutiny. There will also be regular communication with all staff to raise awareness of the plan so that they too can think about ways in which we can improve our services and deliver our ambitions. Can I conclude by thanking officers across all departments who have played a role in developing the plan, and particularly tribute to the small but very effective policy team who have pulled it all together. I second this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Posnett. Any questions? Anyone want to speak? Nope. Okay. In that case, you've got nothing to answer, Mr. Rushton.
Just to reinforce that the plan is ambitious.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry. Have we got someone?
We've got
Amanda.
one, Mrs.
Okay. Sorry, Amanda.
Apologies, I assume I'm going to go straight to Michael. Thanks for the summary report and the introduction to the strategic plan. It's an incredibly important plan to put in place. Our officers have also worked really hard to get this plan through the various process before presented here today, as well as the public engagement. I think that should be encouraged. There is much in the document that we will support, and the objectives I'm sure we can all get behind. As the leader has already said, clean, green future, great communities, improving opportunities, strong economy, transport and infrastructure, and keeping people safe and well. In the forward, the leader observes that this document is aspirational, and further detail on how we deliver these priorities are set out in supporting documents, and Pam has outlined those there now. What worries me a little bit is the document sets out a clear strategic direction, but there are few targets. Less than a quarter of the stated aims include a specific target. This was picked up and reported in Appendix B in the pack. The suggested mitigation does point to some improvements, and generally I think a summary table of the aims and the annual targets is needed. Key performance indicators I think would be helpful. I'm sure that will be developed over time. Without numbers though, there's no way you can tell if the plan is working, and I think we need this regular check back. I just pull out one example, if I may. In the improved communities on page 42, the text we have point to the county ranking within the 25% worst communities for the percentage of children achieving an expected level of development at 2 to 2.5 years. I'm familiar with the programmes that have been put into place to deal with this measure, but our aim is to increase the percentage. Technically, this could just be improved by a single percentage point. I know that's not what we mean. In order to be aspirational, I want to see significant improvements here, and I think we need to be much bolder. And if that's the case, I think we should say it, and I think that for us is the challenge. As a 4-year plan, we will welcome the detail as it becomes available in our scrutiny committees and look forward to the delivery of the targets as they become available. Our County Council can and must do more for our communities, and where we can, I think we should say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also appreciate the work that has gone into drawing up the strategic plan from the officers and the consultation that has been undertaken. Looking at the objectives and the vision in the plan, I'm sure that everyone could support them. I think it would be very difficult not to be able to support them. But the reality is in terms of the practical ability to deliver on the objectives in the plan, particularly given the financial situation, in terms of the pressures on the council, in terms of still not delivering the fair funding or the additional opportunities for level 3 from the county deal, and also more broadly that services generally in Leicestershire, whether it's education, health, police, fire, and really across the board, are funded below average. So whilst all of us, I think, can agree with the objectives in the strategic plan, and it would be difficult to disagree with them, in terms of the practical delivery of them for the residents in Leicestershire, the reality is we still suffer from underfunded public services and finances, which unfortunately is just likely to get even worse with the current financial situation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bernie. Mr. Rushton, you want to respond?
Thank you. Can I first of all say to Amanda, as a summary table may well be useful. I'll ask Pam to look into it, and I think the idea of including some numbers is also a reasonable thing to ask for, and I'll ask Pam to look into it. Michael, we might well be low funded in Leicestershire, but one of the problems we have, is we're all so high performing. So, the fire service is high performing, the police are doing well, and whenever they judge us, it's one of the weaknesses when we go to government, when we say we're short of money for everything. They say, well, look how well you're doing. And I say to them, well, give us more money, we can be high performing in more areas, but it is a bit of a problem. Having said that, I think the plan is ambitious. We firmly believe it's achievable. There's if there is a collective focused effort by all departments working in collaboration with partner organisations, communities, by the end of the life cycle of this plan, we will achieve, amongst other things, significant reductions in carbon emissions, more residents feeling they can influence council decisions, increased early years and educational attainment outcomes, reduce skills shortages in the local economy, which, as you know, at the moment is really, really difficult, improve health and life expectancy, and reduced health inequalities. I'm pleased that I think we're going to get a unanimous support for this plan. I welcome your support, Michael, albeit more caveated than Amanda's, but I think you'll be able to vote for it, and I hope we all do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rushton. So we're now asked that the strategic plan for 2022 to 2026, as set out in Appendix A to the report, be approved. All in favour? Any against? I'll take that as not. Okay, thank you very much. It's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. And we move on to the second report, Leicestershire County Council's Community Strategy, Our Communities Approach 2022 to 2026, on pages 82 to 104. It's been moved by Mrs. Posnett.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to be able to move this motion to approve and adopt the Council's Community Strategy, Our Communities Approach 2022 to 2026. We have had a community strategy at the Council since 2014, and our commitment to working with and alongside our communities is stronger and more vital now than ever. Our communities approach has been revised and updated from the community strategy that was adopted in 2017. Through delivery of the strategy and the knowledge, learning and experience gained, especially during COVID, this revisited strategy has been produced and is coming before us today. This learning included a 16-week engagement process with a broad range of stakeholders on the draft revised strategy between the 1st of November 2021 and the 18th of February 2022. The engagement process sought to gain feedback on the strategy, but was also used to help promote the approach, identify good practice, and to shape plans for implementation. Members, particularly members of scrutiny, are thanked for their interest during this time and their involvement in helping to promote the approach to their communities. Our communities approach sets out 3 principles: prevention, participation, and catalysts. These are underpinned using an asset strengths-based model. This means we look to harness the skills, knowledge, connections and potential that exists within a community. We also want to continue to advocate social action. The principles and model are fully explained within the strategy, and we need to work to embed these within the council and across our communities. This has begun with a dedicated section on the Leicestershire Communities website on the asset-based model. Plans are in place for community events and activities. We will continue to work with our partners, keeping an oversight and looking at development within the communities board and learning within the council and wider. All members have a key role to play as local community leaders, and I look forward to working with you and your communities to embed and deliver the approach. I commend the report to the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Posnett. Mrs. Richard.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations on your new position. As the lead member has stated, this is a revised strategy and one that I've been very familiar with. I'm pleased that the foundation we have laid previously in supporting people to help themselves, working with individuals, families and communities to understand what good is for them, and ensuring that people feel involved in decisions and services that affect them, has been reflected in and shaped the strategy we have before us. Our community's approach 2022-26 sets out the framework for all of us as to how we can support our communities to be included, involved and responsible for the public services that they receive. This strategy is not about what we want to achieve. Instead, it is a mandate on how we can achieve it together. Hence, our community's approach as the title. I welcome this as a whole council document. The community's approach will build on the excellent work we are already delivering through initiatives such as the community managed libraries, local area coordination and the Shire's community grants. Finally, I would like to extend my thanks to all the officers who have produced this document, and I second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Mullaney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we support this document and appreciate the work that's been done in terms of consultation and so on, which went to the Scrutiny Commission on a number of occasions. So, yeah, we're happy to support it.
Mr. Rushton, do you want to say something?
If everybody's finished, Chairman.
One more.
Okay, do them first, Chairman.
Right. Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Tim. Communities used to be about organising or helping to organise voluntary organisations to help deliver what we need to deliver. But it's now much more important, and has been outlined by the speakers. It's far more about ensuring communities get the services that they need as communities. And I think this document's pretty good. I didn't believe that to start with. It's been around all the committees, so you should all have some familiarity with this. But we were told it was embedding the asset-based approach, which Mrs. Posnett has kindly reminded us of. I wasn't quite clear what that meant. So I said, does this mean the big society? And the speaker said, no, it's the opposite of the big society. So I had a further think, and I thought, well, can I perhaps have a word with those? And they kindly went on Zoom and explained a little bit more about it. And it seems to me this is about using all the resources we've got. That was the first thing, the asset thing. And the second thing was, yes, it's the how, not the what. So I think bearing those two things in mind, I think we've got a good package here. The only remaining query I've got is on page 7. That's 93 in your packs. And it devotes a whole section to supporting town and parish councils. I took this up in the committee. Well, what happens to the other third of the county? I mean, as Mrs. Posnett knows, living in a non-parish, non-town council area, where are we? So that's my only remaining question, and perhaps we'll get the answer sometime. Thank you very much.
I won't make some comments about that as a parish area. Mrs. Posnett, would you like to reply?
I think really... Sorry.
Mr. Rushton. Yeah.
A good point about unparished areas, which I'm sure Pam will attempt to answer. Can I just place on record how important the administration takes the community strategy and the community's approach, and also place on record my thanks to the ladies who've done the work on this over the years. So Pam did it before she was chairman. She was stuck as chairman for 2 years due to COVID. Then Louise took over. That's why Louise is doing the seconding, and now Pam's back in charge. And in all honesty, I don't think we could have had two better people doing it in the whole of the administration. So thank you to you two ladies for the work you've done on this, because it is really, really important to us as an administration. And as I can see, it's important to the Labour group and the Liberal group. So thank you very much.
And Mrs. Posnett.
Thank you. Well, I think Mr. Hunt really answered most of his questions himself without me reiterating those. But how do we work with non-parish and non-town councilled areas? Well, we work with voluntary groups. We work with the district council. We do things together. We do have an annual meeting with parish councils. We do help. We don't do it for them, but we do help parishes that wish to do the neighbourhood plan. As I say, we don't do it for them, but we assist them, we give them some advice, and we point them towards people that can help them. So what we do is we don't necessarily solve all the problems, but we give them the tools to be able to go forward and solve them themselves, which is the best way for everybody, rather than depending on somebody else to do it.
Thank you, Mrs. Posner. Just to re-emphasise, if you aren't parished, there's nothing to stop you having a neighbourhood plan area. Wards can get together and do it themselves, as long as it's a recognised area. Done that a few times now, so I know where I'm going. Right, the motion on the order paper is that the Community Strategy, Leicestershire County Council, our Communities Approach 2022 to 26, Penny's report, be approved. Can I have a vote? Can we have approvals of that, please? All in favour?
It's okay.
Yep. Thanks, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And third part of this section, dates of council meetings 2022 to 2023 and 23-24. Mr. Shepherd to move.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations on your election. I move that the council meetings in 2022-23 and 2023-24 be held on the date set out on the order paper.
Second, Chairman. Microphone on, Kevin.
It would help, fine. I'll have to project better. Sorry about that. Yes, so appointing the leader is the next item. Motion 1, Mrs. Taylor will move it. Mrs. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that Mr. N.J. Rushton be appointed leader of the council for the period until the next annual meeting of the council.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Shepherd.
Seconded, Chairman.
All in favour? It's not quite as easy as before. Are you all right with that? All against?
Chairman? No.
Mr. Rushton.
Just briefly, Chairman, can I formally thank my group for their endorsement for me to continue as leader. I will be doing my best for the people of Leicestershire, whether you voted for us or for me or not. It's a shame that you couldn't bring yourself to support me, but c'est la vie. Thank you.
Yeah, just they didn't vote against either. Motion 2. This is Mr. Rushton to move the...
That it be noted that the leader proposes to appoint the members on list 1 attached to the order paper as members of the Cabinet. I move.
And Mr. Shepherd?
Seconded, Chairman.
So, all in favour?
We don't need to vote, do we? It's just to note.
It's noted. It's noted. Very true. I wonder why they note bit of paper there. They get these wonderful bits of paper there. I thought they'd missed that bit. And now we move on to the item B, to appoint Cabinet support members as the Council considers appropriate.
Chairman, I move that the following members be appointed as Cabinet support members until the next annual meeting of the County Council, as provided for in Article 7 of the Council's Constitution.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shepherd?
Seconded, Chairman.
All in favour? Yeah. Any against? Thank you very much. Yeah, it's carried. Yes, sorry. Easy. What time are we?
We're going to break.
Tea at 4 o'clock?
Break at the end of this page.
Yeah, okay.
So
before the motions. Yeah, we're going to have tea after this next point, before the motions. And apparently it will be cups of tea, you know, in things, apparently. We'll see. Appointing members of the Scrutiny Commission, boards and committees. Motion 1, Mr. Shepherd.
Thank you, Chairman. I move that the membership of the Scrutiny Commission, boards and committees as set out in List 2 and the Chairman-elect and spokespersons named in List 3 attached to the order paper be approved.
Very much. Mr. Bray?
Yes, I second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. All in favour? Any against? No. Thank you very much. Motion 2, Mr. Shepherd again.
Thank you, Chairman. I move that the Chief Executive be authorised to make and terminate appointments to the Commission, committees, boards and other County Council bodies, not including the Cabinet, in accordance with the wishes of the political groups to whom the seat in question has been allocated, subject in the case of those bodies set out in List 2 to the group giving 1 day's notice to the Chief Executive of its wishes.
Mr. Bray?
Yes, I'm also happy to second that, Mr. Chairman.
All in favour? Thank you very much. Tea time. Come back at what time? 4:05. Please reconvene. first motion is the cost of living in Leicestershire under Max's name. Max, do you want to move the motion?
Yes. Thanks very much, Chair. I'm pleased to move the motion on the order paper concerning the cost of living. In doing so, I'm grateful to all those who contributed to the wording, which expressed the very serious situation that people are suffering in the county, people below the line, if you like. And I suspect many of us don't qualify in that respect, and for whom the cost of living crisis is not going to be a personal crisis. But there are many people out there in Leicestershire who will feel this very grievously and will cause, ultimately, a lot of concern from departments of the County Council. Come to that perhaps a bit later. So those on lowest income, those on low wages, which are many these days, depending on state benefits or pensions, they won't suffer the same inflation that rises as you or I, because the greater proportion of their spending is on food and heating, and therefore they will experience an even higher rate of inflation to the headlines that you read in the papers. So I do encourage everybody to read the details of the motion, because we put together a number of things our county council can do to play its small part in helping those who are struggling financially. We will work through the local resilience forum that delivers emergency planning for Leicestershire, Leicester and Rutland, and was very much in evidence during the and ongoing pandemic. It's aimed to improve debt advice and access to that advice through Contact Plus and other avenues, and that includes help like the Warm Homes discount. It will prioritise action to identify and contain those legal moneylenders, colloquially called loan sharks. It will widen interventions on child poverty, which currently is estimated to rise by 500,000 if the Chancellor does not act very soon. And it will develop new initiatives to support struggling families. The government has laid emphasis, as always in such situation, on emergency funds. Most of these will not touch the sides, but County Council has specific responsibility for the distribution of the Household Support Fund. And Mrs Taylor referred to that in the £3.4 million the government had so far devoted to the problem. Well, £3.4 million is about a penny per child in poverty. So we can increase council tax support after another steep rise and identify any mitigating factors for small businesses. And that's quite important too, because when families and when communities suffer, the small businesses suffer. Looking ahead, Labour has urged a windfall tax on energy companies and an emergency budget to bring forward next year's promised rise in benefits. So the Chancellor's promised rises in benefits, but not until next year. And you know what happens when we postpone rises in council tax? Those rises are always then a year later. So we must remember that the crisis that will hit the County Council services with more children and families coming on our lists, in particular with the cost of food rising, the school meal service that we provide is going to find it hard to deliver nourishing meals within that cost, and let alone make a modest return, which we ask for. So with those comments, Chair, I beg to move the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hunt. Mrs Taylor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I'm happy to second this motion, and I will reserve my right to speak.
Mr Mulaney.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. The Liberal Democrat group will support this motion. The cost of living crisis is hitting people here in Leicestershire and across the country, and today we've obviously heard that inflation has hit a 40-year high at 9%, and people will be experiencing, many of them, inflation rates and price rises that they've not seen in their lifetimes. And last month we saw a huge increase in the fuel bill cap, and then again, of course, in October there will be another huge rise in fuel bills when the price cap is again raised. And obviously these will hit people on low incomes, but also I suspect a lot of people on middle incomes who until now have been self-reliant and have not had to depend on government support, but who've just about been managing, may well find that given the huge increases in fuel bills and prices, that actually many people who've been on middle incomes may well find that they're struggling, as well as people on low incomes as well, to meet the cost of living crisis. So I support the motion and any efforts that can be done locally to help solve the problem. But in the end, it really does come down to national action, and there does need to be more effective action from the government to support people through these difficult times, such as a windfall tax on the energy companies to the huge profits that they've made to help people who are struggling, and also the need for an emergency cut in VAT. And I gather that the Liberal Democrats are putting an amendment on that into Parliament today, and I hope that the Conservatives, including Leicestershire's Conservatives, can support an emergency cut in VAT to help people through these difficult times. So we as Liberal Democrats do support this motion, but we hope that more help will be given by the government in future to support people through these difficult times.
Thank you, Mr Mullaney. Mrs Hack.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I think this motion is a really important one for us to consider. I think one of the things that we obviously face here in Leicestershire, I think the report's very much talking about around energy on the price cap. We'll have many residents across Leicestershire that actually will have alternative sources of fuel, and therefore they're not protected from the price cap. So, for example, if you live in a block of flats, you will be on a commercial supply, you won't be on a domestic supply, or if you actually get your heat by oil, those costs have really rocketed. So I think that we do have some acute issues that do impact Leicestershire families, and I think what we can do to help is really important. I think the concern that obviously that we've got is the impact it has further down the line. The more money we spend on fuel, the less money we're spending in the shops. And actually our businesses have really struggled in the last, it's not just been the impact of COVID. The high street was struggling before. And I think we do need to recognise that middle income families that will be able to bear the cost won't be spending their cash elsewhere, and that will really start to hit our small businesses badly too. So thank you for putting the motion forward.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs Hack. Mr Rushton.
Just briefly, Chairman, can I thank Max for putting forward the motion and accepting some minor tweaks so we can support it. And I think we'll be able to support it across the chamber. But can we also remember that this isn't a crisis particular to the UK, United Kingdom. This is a global crisis in fuel costs and inflation, and there's only a certain amount government actions can do. And to be fair, even if you can afford the increases in the costs, which obviously I can, I certainly noticed that my gas and electric is 50% up. I noticed, for instance, my food bill's £20 a week more money. So, even if you're wealthy, you certainly still do notice it. And obviously, as Amanda said, if you're poor and you've not got slack in the system, obviously you notice it even more. And I think it is true to say that some people are having to make decisions to either eat or keep warm. So we recognise that, and as a county council, I promise we'll do our best locally with the resources we've got. I'm not particularly in favour in cuts in VAT, if I'm honest, Michael. They're hard to put back, and obviously this country needs revenue to fund its historic debts, not least to say throughout COVID. And also I'm not particularly in favour in windfall taxes, because if we put big windfall taxes on the energy companies now, what it will do, it will harm investment for the future. And big companies rely on their reputation amongst investors, and if every investor thinks every time they make a bit of money the government's going to take it off them, they won't invest in that company, and that company won't invest in new technology to make sure any energy supplies are safe for the future. So I'm not in favour of that in particular, but I do understand the crisis we're in. And if I was advising the Chancellor, which of course I'm not, I think one of the best ways at the moment is helped the more needy is the £150 which is going out between Band A and Band D. Now obviously some people that live in Band D houses will be wealthy and don't particularly need it. But as a matter of principle, it's a very quick, easy and simple way of getting money to those who do need it. So from articles I've read in the national papers, I understand that they are considering whether or not to increase that in the autumn to £300 or even £500. And I also read that he will be making some budget announcements in the autumn. But in the meantime, we're happy to support your motion, Max, and Deborah will finish off. Thank you.
Mr. King.
Thank you, Chairman. So just I wanted to, actually Nick's just said a lot of what I was going to say, particularly about it being a global crisis brought about by the illegal invasion of the Ukraine by Mr. Putin and his cronies. But obviously the other issue is that, councils across Leicestershire, including districts, were already doing an awful lot of work with our residents in supporting them through council tax reduction, benefits, also with welfare support and all of that. So what my question really was to Mr. Hunt is, he talks about establishing a Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland-wide group. You mentioned the LRF, Local Resilience Forum, which is obviously already established. But in the motion it says to be chaired by a representative from Leicester Cathedral. I'm not quite sure with the LRF whether they're actually represented on that, whether that's actually appropriate, and if it's not that body, well, which body is this going to be? Is this going to be officer-led or member-led body? I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mr. King. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a very timely motion. I'm in represent one of the divisions where I think actually the majority of people will be affected by the rising prices and fuel increases. Shopping, food, petrol, everything will have an impact. And as Councillor Hack says, there's not much slack in my residents' pockets, unfortunately. So it is a matter of heating or eating for some of them. We've been looking, the weather's been fine for the last few weeks, so gas usage has dropped, so gas bills, that kind of food will come, because some of my residents are on prepayment meters, and I've had residents, and we've given them to citizens' advice and other emergency areas to say, actually, I can't top up my gas or electric today, I haven't got the money to do it, can I have one of those vouchers? So we just forward them to the charities. And I think Nick's right in one way, we do a lot, and we don't highlight it enough, I think, and I think this is a time to highlight what Leicestershire does do. So, for example, we have the new solar panel initiative, Solar Together or something, and I think we need to push this kind of thing because a lot of people will know it's there because they've got use of the internet and the computer and they'll see the flashy signs on our website. But I tell you what, the majority of people won't know it's there. So I think there's a different way of communicating. Maybe the next Resident Matters newspaper that goes out or our own newsletters that we do as county councillors should highlight the things that we do to help alleviate some of these issues. We're not going to be able to do all of it, and I agree to some extent that global matters have affected or exacerbated what was coming down the line, but I don't think we can use that as an excuse not to help our residents, and I don't think that's what anybody's saying. But I think we should highlight the initiatives, but also maybe provide more funding into our local charities and help centres so they can fund some workers, frontline workers who can deal with people on a day-to-day basis, because I think forever and a day these caseloads will increase and eventually people are going to start giving up, and the first point of call will be ourselves as their local representative to find out what's happening, and we saw what happened in May. And we know elections happen every 4 years, so there'll be another cycle next year, another cycle the year after, and year after, and year after. And if we don't come to grips with this, it doesn't matter what party you're at, eventually people will get fed up with all of us. So we need to help, and we need to help now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mrs. Taylor, you'll conclude your remarks.
Thank you. I'll just clarify the point. I've been advise that the representative from Leicester Cathedral is Alison Adams, who's Associate Dean, so she's within that group, Phil. Okay, I think we're all aware of the cost of living rise across this chamber. I think we all support this motion and realise what an impact this has, not only on ourselves and our families, but across the county on all our residents. And I did outline a lot of that support that the council's offering already, but we also need to remember that this will affect a lot of our staff here that we employ as the county council, so it's very close to heart as well, because we have a lot of our staff here that are on what we would call low or middle incomes, and I think Amanda's picked up there. It's not just those in poverty that are struggling, it's those on the middle incomes that are working really hard that are struggling with this cost of living rise. We will do as much as we can across LLR, including working with the district councils and the city, but as always, we can try and do more, but we have to do that within our financial constraints, and we've only got a certain amount of money, and unless we stop other services, we can only do what we can do with the funding that we're provided, but we will try our best to make the best use of that money to support everyone across the districts. I just want to highlight a couple of things. There is a website called the Stop Loan Sharks, which provides useful information and a confidential online reporting form for people that think they might have been took out a loan with a loan shark, and that offers some really good advice on there and outlines how you can work out whether you might have been taken out a loan with a loan shark and what you can do about it. So that's a really useful website. The Citizens Advice Bureau also deliver really good debt advice, so we work in partnership with them. And there is also the Illegal Money Lending Unit, which receives referral from trading services within Leicestershire County Council and the Citizens Advice Bureau when intelligence is received indicating that there are loan sharks operating in Leicestershire. So if you do have any information, then there's also a way that you can report that in, either to our trading services or through the Citizens Advice, so we can clamp down on these loan sharks as soon as we're aware that they're operating within Leicestershire. And that unit receives funding via the Financial Services Authority, who in turn recovers the funding via financial industry levy. So there are lots of support out there that we're doing already, and there is some information there about debt, which we can hopefully stop people being taken as mugs for this, these horrible people out there that are taking off of the people within our county. So, as I said, we're doing as much as we can, but we're also open to suggestions from other members across the chamber if there's something else you think we should be doing. If we can do it, we will do it, but I'm very happy to support this motion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Mr. Hunt, you have the right to...
Yes. Firstly, thank everybody for your contributions. This is essentially a county motion, not getting involved too much in what's going on, or what may be going on in Westminster, but sure any help from that direction, which is not spread evenly over so many of the population, but is targeted to those who are most in need. Just to come back on the question of information on the web, I think to suggest that is not to have seen the way in which loan sharks attack an estate. Everybody on the estate is short certain estates, and they will go house to house, and they will go with very alluring leaflets. And our trading standards department is excellent in everything it does, I think. And they will obviously do what they can within the context of what we're saying. So thank you very much, and for support.
Thanks, Mr. Hunt. So the motion is in front of you. It's been proposed and seconded. Can I have all those in favour, please? Yep. Thank you. So no one against? No. So unanimous. Thank you very much. That's a good motion. And the second motion about Ukrainian refugees. Mr. Mullaney, I think you're going to propose it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All of us were shocked and appalled at the Vladimir Putin-led aggression against the people of Ukraine and the huge amount of unnecessary human suffering and loss of life that has occurred because of this needless conflict. Here in Leicestershire, many people were moved to help the refugees from the Ukraine, and it's particularly positive that we've seen so many households in Leicestershire open their homes to over 700 refugees fleeing from the conflict in Ukraine, and they have shown open-hearted, positive support to help people whose lives have been devastated by the conflict, and we appreciate all that they have done. I've been contacted by a number of the families who have taken in refugees, and one of the issues they raised with me was the need for the refugees to have bus passes to help them get around the local area. It was in response to this that I put forward this motion today. Ensuring Ukrainian refugees in Leicestershire have access to bus passes or other assistance with transport is one practical way we can help those people who have suffered so much settle into our communities and life be made a bit easier. So I hope that all members can support this motion today. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Murray. Mr. Galton.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Second and reserve my remarks.
Mr. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Posnet.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased to see this motion brought, Michael, and I think it's a good motion. It will benefit some of the Ukrainian refugees if they had bus passes, but living somewhere like Melton, there is only one bus they could possibly use, and that's from Melton to Leicester. And I have had some meetings with the first Ukrainian young lady that came to live in Melton, and she didn't realise how expensive it was to travel around this country. She thought she could, with the £200, she could buy some clothes, she could get a bus pass, and she could travel around the country and have a look. And when it was pointed out to her that a £200 might just about pay for a rail pass to go to Nottingham for a month, and then that would be it, and she wouldn't be able to afford anything else. So although I will support the motion, and I do support it, a bus pass is not necessarily, because this young lady wants to work. Now, there is a job she could go for, but it's in one of the villages. There are no buses to take there. So if she's looking for a job with no transport, she's got to hope she can get a job in the town itself, because from where she's living, she'll be able to walk into the town, whereas to walk to the village where there could be a job she could go for, it's about an 8-9 mile walk there and back, so that's totally out of the question. The other thing she's found out, she needs some dental treatment. So of course there's not an NHS dentist that will take her. The person she's living with took her to her dentist, who's a private dentist, so she's looking at £100 if she needs to have that work done. So it's lots of things that I think some of the Ukrainians, because I have got some Ukrainian friends and I've visited them about 5 times in the last 3 or 4 years. And I do think it's something that they've not really taken into consideration. They've wanted to escape the Ukraine, which I can't blame them for, because I would want to, but they've not realised some of the huge implications that they would face once they get here. But thank you for the motion. I do support it, and I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Mrs.
Thank you, Chair. I think, the people in my community, we're so close to the Ukrainian centre in the city, because obviously my patch is just on the edge of the city. I think one of the things that's really important is that Ukrainian refugees can connect with one another, and actually those centres are based in the city. So actually being able to travel by bus, although I do recognise the restrictions of bus services that some of your individuals will face, I think what's really important here is it feels like quite a simple, straightforward gesture that we can pull together, and hopefully it can be something that we can support.
Thanks, Mrs. Craig. Mr. King.
Thank you, Chairman. As I mentioned earlier, over a third of all Ukrainians that have come through the Support for Homes scheme in Leicester and Leicestershire and Rutland are currently residing in the Harbour districts. Harbour districts is about 28% of the county geography, and unfortunately, and those members who represent part of that area for county will know that bus services are very challenging in that locality. And whilst I don't not support this motion, it's not the total answer. It's just part of the answer for transport. It's how are people going to get around. Now the problem is that a lot of people are living in communities which, even if we had all the money that you could, you still wouldn't have a bus service to them. It just wouldn't be viable. So it's in any stretch of the imagination. So I think really this motion is part of it, but it's not the whole thing. And I am a little bit concerned about it raising expectations and us not being able to deliver what hosts and, importantly, the refugees are looking for, which is help and support of how to get into, as Mrs. Hack just said, the Ukrainian Centre in the city of Leicester. Well, that's a challenging thing from where I am and out in our area. So that's the only point I wanted to make. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hack. Mr. King. Mr. Rushton.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't often praise Liberals, but on this occasion I'm going to thank you, Michael and Simon, for the motion. Thank you for taking the minor amendment, because as everybody says, what we want to do is act quickly, because these people in general want to work. They're disadvantaged in a way because they're mainly females with children, so any help we can offer them needs to be quick. So what we'll try and do is develop, and it says here, an appropriate scheme or transport, because it is well recognised that if you're in Harborough, there are not many buses. There's not many buses up in Melton Mowbray. Unless you live somewhere that goes towards the city, you know, a town, buses are few and far between. So we need to develop an appropriate scheme or transport and implement it quickly, because as a county council we're proud of what we've done, and I get loads and loads of emails from people thanking us for what we've done for our Ukrainian guests, as people call them. So it is a good motion. We will support it. Can I remind you, Phil, you haven't quite got a third of the guests in Harborough. You've got 190 out of 700. And also remember, Phil, when you're here, you're a county councillor, not the leader of Harborough District Council. Thank you, Chairman.
And Mr. Galton, you reserved your remarks.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and can I congratulate you on your elevated position for the next 12 months. I mean, why should we do this? I'm actually quite privileged to be able to rise and second this. We should do it because we can, and it's the right thing to do, because really, you know, nobody can fail to be moved by what the people of Ukraine have had to suffer in recent months. You know, we've witnessed scenes reminiscent of World War II. These people have lost everything. They've lost their family, they've lost their houses, they've lost their jobs, they've lost everything, and they now face losing their country. Let's hope that this unprovoked act of aggression can be overcome, because someone said earlier, I'm sure they'll want to go back. I think it was Nick. Of course they'll want to go back to where they live. These aren't economic migrants. These are people that, you know, somebody said, well, it's going to be difficult here. Well, it's better being here than being bombed, isn't it, and blown up, which is what they're facing. I don't think they've come here for a holiday, because they've come here to escape Putin's aggression and war. And therefore, if we can do this, however small it is, and it won't be for long, it won't be something we have to keep going for years and years, if we can make it easier for them to get about and make their life a bit easier, then it's a very small gesture, and it's something that this council can be proud of, and that's why I hope everyone in this chamber would want to support this today, Mr. Chairman. It is the least we can do. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Galton. Yes, absolutely. I was just thinking while everyone's speaking, I mean, I said earlier, I've got a Ukrainian family I'm doing a little bit for, and one of them is the fact that they need to learn English. I mentioned about the buses. At the moment, they're likely to have to log in, or rather not log in, to actually go to a training course to learn English in Market Harborough. Bus again. And I've been trying to work out why we don't offer that sort of thing online. Because learning English, you don't have to be in a room and do it, do you? But anyway, it's just shows you little things. Anyway, beside the point. So the motion has been... oh yes, of course, Mr. Mullaney.
Just to say thank you to everybody for speaking in support of the motion, and I hope everyone can support this today and that it can be implemented as soon as possible by the County Council. Thank you.
Absolutely, thanks, Mr. Mullaney. So you've heard the motion. Those in favour, please. Yeah. Unanimous. That's it. Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Well, that concludes today's meeting, you'll be glad to know. The next meeting is on Wednesday, the 6th of July at 2 o'clock, so hope to see you all here. Thank you very much.